Okay, this is part 2 of the same question, which is explaining the economic and non-economic factors. We have already done the economic factors in the previous video. In this, we will be understanding the non-economic factors, the non-economic environment of business. Okay, what are the factors that affect the non-economic environment? It is history, culture, sociology, political system, and legal structure. Just underline all of these that I've underlined in the question. You don't have to underline in the answer. You don't have to entirely read everything. Just read whatever I'm underlining. That is more than enough for your exams. Just remember all of these. Also, don't forget to give all these side headings in the examinations, which is very important. Okay, so now let's go through whatever is given here. So here you can see that these are the few elements of non-economic environment of business. These are what we'll be studying in the coming paragraphs in detail, how they affect the business. Okay, these don't affect the business directly, rather they affect it indirectly. How? Let's go through this and understand. It also says, for example, how? For example, it says the ideology of government and power. What is government and power? Whatever ruling party is there, their ideology is also very important. How much significance they think the private sector should have, or how much significance they think the public sector should have in production or in anything, in medical field or in anywhere. Okay, how their ideology is also important, because even the tax laws are made by the parliament. People who are sitting in the parliament, they decide what has to, what has to come up as a law. So their ideology is also very important. And they also say, as a matter of fact, non-economic factors and economic factors are interdependent. They depend on each other. It's called interdependent. Okay, and they also say that these factors are grouped together and also called as socio-economic, social plus economic. Okay, because they are interdependent, that is, they depend on each other. They say social plus social is nothing but non-economic, right? So non-economic and economic. So they mean the combination of these economic and non-economic factors could be called as socio-economic or politico-economic factors. They are a combination. And now we'll understand what the coming paragraph talks about. One is sociological factors. For sociological factors generally talks about attitude in general. What is the attitude of society towards, example, in relation to business? Okay, understand this. In relation to the business environment, what is the attitude of society? What is the attitude of the people? Towards whom? Towards the managers, authority, responsibility, delegation. Delegation is giving work to your lower whoever is under the boss. Okay, whoever works under a boss is called delegation. Giving work to them, giving work to someone who works under a boss is called delegation. And then workers participation, achievement, wealth, income, whatever is their ideology towards them, whatever is their opinion or attitude towards spending, income and everything, whether the society thinks we should spend less and save more, or we should be earning more income, or less income is enough. Whatever the society has towards, whatever the idea society has towards this, okay, is also important. And also the religion aspect is also important. For example, a particular class, let's say, it's Christmas, all right, it's Christmas, then people will be buying a lot of plum cakes. So the during December, the business for bakeries will be increasing because they want a lot of plum cakes, or they pastries will be sold more during that time because they gift. And even the gifting habits will be more in the December time. So they'll, so many people gift to each other because of it, because it's New Year, because it's because it's Christmas. So even the gift industry could be growing a lot. Okay, jewelry industry or whatever, during jewelry industry, during these few Hindu ceremonies where they buy a lot of gold during a particular day. I don't exactly remember what day it is. So during those days, okay, so like that, depending on their religion also, the business, that also, the idea towards that also influences the business. All right, attitude towards education, acquisition of knowledge. Attitude towards education is just like, if in a family they think that girl child has to have education, then there will be more people, more females also who get employment, and in turn the economy can be growing better because there are more employment, because females are also into the working population. Okay, acquisition of knowledge, vocational and technical training, that is skills, getting skill training, and other similar factors also exercise a strong influence on business activities. These could be socio-cultural or socio-educational. Like we said, there is a combination. These are also the combination. Okay, in addition, buying and consumption habits. In addition to this, buying and consumption habits, spending habits of people, like we already talked about, their beliefs and values could also be significant in the business planning. Okay, how much people are willing to spend in particular objects, that also the business should take into consideration, okay, before coming up with a strategy. And this para talks about strategy, how this para talked about attitudes of people towards different things. This para talks about strategy. Okay, for a business to be effective and successful, they have to come up with a lot of strategies, and that strategy has to be in accordance with the socio-educational cultural environmental variables. They have to take into idea whatever the idea people have about educational, society, and cultural environment. Okay, and the marketing mix will also be such as to suit the environmental characteristics of the market, which depends on the sociological factors. Basically, they mean the consumption pattern. Social inertia sometimes come in the way of promotion of certain projects. For example, in marketing of family planning, okay, they say in marketing of family planning or something, that say which has a social stigma. So people don't generally, a lot of people don't no, it's not like these days, but back in time, people didn't have much awareness about family planning. So you can't just go and say that, dude, you can't have 5 kids, you can only have 2 kids. You can just go and say that. So there are a lot of pills that are used for family planning. So for the business, for development of that business, what they have to do is they can't just go and approach people and tell, use this to not have your babies. Not like that. It's not like that. You have to first adopt to the strategy and be in tune with the social stigma. What is the social stigma in particular in regarding to that product, in regarding to that particular concept? For example, social planning. And in the long run, it has to take concrete steps to change the value system. Whatever values are instilled in the society, they have to change it over time, not immediately. So like this, the strategy has to be developed. First, they have to plan up strategies in tune with social stigma. Okay, this is a dual approach. Dual means two. One is in tune with social stigma, they have to come up with strategies and then take concrete steps to change the value system. Okay, next one is consumerism. Consumerism is also a very important social movement. It exercises what actually consumerism means is that rights and powers of the consumer, that is augmenting means positioning the rights and consumers, positioning the rights and powers of the consumer in relation to sellers have few rights and powers, and then we have some rights and powers. You can't, let's say a seller is cheating, so you have to have few rights and powers, and you have to understand what they are to go to the court and argue against them. Okay, and these also have considerable influence on the socio-economic environment. We'll learn how, because if people are aware of rights and powers, sellers can't cheat us, right? Sellers can't cheat the consumers. So this is what they mean in the coming paragraph right here. Here you can see, more educated the society becomes, the more social responsibility falls on the business. That is, the business can't actually cheat them. They have more responsibility towards satisfying the consumers. Okay, and you can also see that the state at which the consumer movement prevails affects the marketing policies of the firm. And then the concept of consumer welfare. Consumer welfare is nothing but the welfare or the goodness for the consumer. Will lay emphasis on the social and economic considerations. You don't have to understand all of these. You can just leave this out. You can just leave this line out. It's not important. More educated the society becomes, the more responsibility falls on the business is important. Also write this point where the state at which the consumers movement prevails affects the marketing policies. And the augmenting of rights. What is consumerism? Is augmenting the rights and powers. It has a considerable influence, not just considerable, it's actually more than considerable, because it has a lot of impact on the business. You have to write about this. Okay, this is one side heading which was about sociological factors. Next one is political and legal environment. Political and legal factors are very closely related, because you will understand how these are closely related because of these. All right, you also have to understand, like the legal enactments are completely dependent on the political climate. How they are explaining in these 4 points. Ideology of the political organization ruling the country. Whatever political organization is ruling the country, India is ruled by BJP, so their ideologies is also important in the political and legal environment. And the role and attitude of the bureaucracy. What is bureaucracy? Generally, for example, it is basically a concentration of power under the for example, a collector, than elected representatives. Okay, something that the decision has to be taken by, let's say that some particular decision has to be taken by a CM, but collector takes it. Okay, like that. Okay, and then comes political stability or instability. For example, there was an issue in Tamil Nadu where there was a time when there was a very unstable political environment when chief minister Ms. Jayalalitha passed away, and there are so many confusions in about who has to be in a rule. Okay, like that. Political instability or stability. Even the politics and legal factors. Legal enactments is basically coming up with law. Okay, these four you have to write. Okay, ideology of political. Out these there are eight. You can just write four. Okay, it's not all important. Role and attitude of bureaucracy, and political stability or instability. Legal rules and enactments. Whatever laws are enacted, and flexibility of constitutional amendments. How flexible are they, how restricted are they, that is what they mean here. Foreign policy and relations, image of the country, and the attitude of legal machinery, etc. Okay, and they also say in India most of the statutory controls are very comprehensive and pervasive influence on the various aspects of business. In India most of the statutory controls, that is mandatory controls, are very comprehensive and pervasive. Okay, comprehensive in the sense very big, a lot, too much. Okay, comprehensive and pervasive influence on the various aspects of business. What statutory controls have various okay, have very big influence on the various aspects of business concerning the location, licensing, pricing, expansion, distribution, and labor relation. Okay, this is all that you have to understand. You can just write this one para. This is more than enough for this heading. Okay, this whole para is enough for this one. Next one, we'll go for the competitive environment, where competitive environment talks about a competition between the firms. Okay, competition, when it comes to competition between the firms, there you can classify into perfect, monopolistic, and oligopoly. This all we studied in school times, if you remember. This para is very easy. This is another external variable which affects the business strategy. Okay, whatever strategy that the business comes up will have to depend upon these two. Okay, all of these, I mean. You see, each of these have different characteristics. For example, in perfect competition, you have to understand that in perfect competition there are so many firms, and there is no one firm which has a lot of power. This is what they mean. Okay, so you see, under perfect competition, more number of firms, market power of a single firm is of no use. There are more number of firms, and generally it is of equal power. What is of equal power? The market power. Okay, under monopoly, what is monopoly? Under monopoly, there is no competition. A firm would enjoy enormous power. Monopoly is where only one firm is there, and that firm has so much of market power under its hands. Okay, and then under oligopoly, there are very little number of firms. Okay, little number of firms, and there is a possibility that the firms can take a joint decision. Very little amount of firms, and they will take joint decisions, and still it is like another type of monopoly, but it's just a group of little firms. Okay, little in the sense not size wise. I'm saying, let's say example, 10 to 15 firms are only existing for a particular product. So those 10 to 15 firms are not like in other countries. Let's say for the same product 100 firms or 200 firms exist. So here it will be oligopoly. So they can take joint decisions. They, or let's say all of their motives are same, just to increase profit and reduce the quality of products. So that can be wrong. To prevent all of this, to prevent the dilution of power, okay, what government came up with is Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, MRTP Act, in India. What is this? The objective is to control the monopolistic undertakings, okay, and preventing the concentration of economic power. Like I said, the dilution is reducing or lowering down. So to prevent the concentration of economic power in few hands, the government came up with this one. Okay, and it was also taken in the public interest for the wellness of the people, is what they mean. Demographic is basically geographic. What the business strategies will be also influenced by the demographic environment, that is the size and growth rate of population, how big the population is, and how fast the population increases or decreases. It also depends upon whether there are too many men or whether there are too many women, or the family size, if there are small families or large families, if there are so many Hindus, or if there are so many Christians or Muslims. Okay, they all have direct bearing in the sense, bearing here means influence, direct bearing on the demand. Let's say there are so many women. For example, since there are so many women, there will be a increased demand for sanitary napkins in a particular country. Okay, like that. Like this, because of the demography of the particular country, there will be a direct influence on the demand. As the population is increasing, it results in the increase in labor supply. Because there are so many people, there will be so much of labor supply. And when there are so much labor supply, generally the price comes down of the labor, because of the cheap labor you will have, and there will be more much of labor intensive techniques. Okay, and because there is an increasing population, there will also be an increasing demand for products, because there are so many people, they want so much things. Okay, because of what is labor intensive techniques, so many labors working. That is what this means. Because there are cheap labor and there is so much of supply, they'll employ more labor intensive techniques than the factories having more missions. Okay, and you can also see that there is another, on the contrary means in opposite, labor shortage results in the adoption of labor saving technologies, for example bringing in machines. Another implications of demographic environment could be explained in the growth of multinationals and development. Multinational here means MNCs, that is big corporates or big companies. Here they say cheap labor and growing market. Um, cheap labor is basically, you understand what it is, giving some labors come less salary. Okay, and growing demand for a particular product. There are two important features for motivated multinationals to invest more and more in such countries. These are the two motivations for a multinational to invest more in a particular country. So let's say in India there is cheap labor. India is actually has cheap labor, and there is a growing market for technology, let's say. So for that, other businessmen from other countries come here to invest more here, because they get more profit. And next one is physical and technological environment. This is the last topic. This is the last heading in this particular topic. So here it's very easy. They just say the technological environment. I'll just give 2 3 examples. Here it's very easy. It says physical, geographical, we already read here. We will be reading about physical and technological examples. For physical, they mean there is a modification in the product mix, so the product mix may suit the environment. They also say, let's say depending on the supply of power and electrification in a particular country, the demand for home appliances will be increasing or decreasing. For example, let's say there is a supply of more increasing supply of power in India, and there is cheap rates. People will demand more of home appliances because they can save money and time. Similarly, the growth rate of LPG connections will also affect the demand for stoves. If there is less LPG, people won't go for manual stoves. Okay. And next one is technological factors bring about rapid economical growth. Okay, you have to understand this. When then there is technological factors in a particular country, there will be faster economic growth, and sometimes with social costs. This we'll understand in a bit. You also have to understand that they have a given example where in USA they design products which are designed for 110 volts, but in India they are for 220 volts, because depending on the country's demography only, products are also designed. Similarly, they are saying technological developments may create demand for new products. For example, there is iPhone 12, 13 coming every few months. So in India, people are buying it so much. Even in India, we have so much demand towards iPhones because there are new technologies that's been coming up. So the demand is also increasing. Next one is a small paragraph that talks about social costs. They've also given one last information or example. This is a very easy example. Just write these 2 3 examples. That's more than enough. In India, there is too much and too frequent voltage fluctuation. Right? In our country, there is a lot of voltage fluctuation. So in our country, the market for stabilizers is quite rosy. Rosy in the sense it's very good. The market is more because the demand for stabilizers is much, because the stabilizers helps in the stabilizing the voltage fluctuation. But this is not the same in other countries. Okay. Maybe because they don't have a lot of power fluctuations. And technological developments thus bring about we already read the same line in the previous paragraph, but at a huge social cost, because they might cause a lot of pollution and other areas. They affect the environment in a bad way. That is what meant by social cost. And this business is to develop awareness. Sorry, the business has to develop awareness about social cost being sorry, one second. Yeah, social cost benefit. They have to understand whether the benefits that's been given to the society is more than the social cost that's been borne. This analysis has to be done by every business before coming up with different business strategies or running the business. They have to cope with fast changing technological environment. So this is what is given in this whole question. This might be a bigger question, but just underline the important points and try to answer. Just try to write these alone in the examinations, which can be very helpful for you. I'll just go through these pages so that you can just see and underline you can just pause the video and underline whichever is important so that it can save your time. let's I'll come up with, sorry, the question ends here, the answer ends here. I'll come up with question number 3 in the next video.